Hello everyone, I'm Sanket Singh and welcome back to my channel. So guys, in this particular video, we are going to talk about some of the interesting miscellaneous concepts of JavaScript. We are going to see some interesting operators and we'll also try to discuss around switch cases that can also help you to do conditionals in JavaScript. You already know about if else, and the concept of switch case is very similar to that with just a tweak here and there. So without any further ado, let's just start. But before starting this video, if you have not yet subscribed to the channel, do consider subscribing to the channel. We are going to put some really awesome content up ahead on this one. So let's just start. So guys, before moving forward, there is a very important information that I would like to give you. So recently we wrapped our Elite 1.0 front-end development course, and now we have launched our Elite 2.0 advanced front-end development course. This is a bigger and a better front-end development course that you need. This course doesn't need any particular prerequisite, and we are going to take you from the very beginner level to the advanced level of front-end engineering. We have actually included projects like your own Replit clone, Wix website maker clone, right? Uber clone, and a lot of similar projects. You are going to make your own PubSub library based LLD driven projects, and we are going to make sure that you learn important front end design patterns as well. I'm going to list down all the projects and all the important design patterns here. This is the only course that you need if you are aiming for SD1 or SD2 or SD3 kind of roles, because we are going to take everything to the very advanced level in front end engineering. We are going to learn a lot of optimizations, and we are going to see technologies like Next.js, Redux, Zustand, TypeScript, React, and of course, the latest version of React. This particular course is going to make sure that you have ample amount of projects that you can add in your resume. We are going to make approximately 20 plus projects with different variety of complexities, engineering problems, and of course, there will be a lot of discussion around the core concepts of frontend. So what are you waiting for? Check out the course link in the description below, and you can use the coupon code mentioned in the description section to get maximum discount possible. See you guys in the cohort, and let's get back to the video. Now, till now, we have discussed a lot of things around programming. We discussed about if else, we discussed about for loops, while loops, right? So it makes sense for us to level up ourselves a bit and make one more move forward to understand basic constructs around programming. So when we were talking about operators, we talked about bitwise operators, we talked about logical operators, relational operators, a lot of things we talked about. Now we are going to talk about unary operators. And technically, these are very easy to understand, right? So you might, at some point of time, you might see something like this. Let's say you have let a is equals to 10, and you will find people doing a plus plus. Okay, what is a plus plus? What is a plus plus? And you will also find people doing something like this. Is, let's say, one piece of code. Let's write one more piece of code. Let a is equals to 10, and you will find people doing let y is equals to a plus plus, right? You will also find people doing let a is equals to 9, let y is equals to plus plus a, right? Something like this. So what is this situation? What is actually these operators all about? So let's talk about if anywhere or anytime you see something like a plus plus or plus plus a. So what is a unary operator? Unary operator means a type of an operator which requires only one operand. An operator which only requires one operand. For example, here you can see I only have one operand, that is a. Here also you can see there is only one operand, that is a. If you see something like a plus b, then there are two operands, right? If you see a mod c, there are two operands, whereas here we have only one operand. So unary operators are those operators that only requires one operand. Okay. So you have to like logically think whenever it is going to be asked to you that whether it is a unary operator or not, you have to figure out that whether it is going to be used with only one operand or not. If two or more than two operands are involved, it is not unary operator. Okay. Now unary operator looks like this. For addition, you have something like this, right? For subtraction also you have something like a minus minus or minus minus a, something like this. So we'll just understand one, and the other one will be extremely obvious for us. Okay. So what is a plus plus? This is kind of like postfix unary addition. This is kind of like postfix unary addition, right? Now what is postfix unary addition? Let's talk about that. Now, what do you mean by postfix? So at any point of time, if you see something like y is equals to a plus plus, right? Y is equals to a plus plus. Then what is happening? This a plus plus, this plus plus actually refers to increment by 1 unit. It actually references to increment by 1 unit, right? It actually references to increment by 1 unit, right? Okay. Now, if you do a plus plus or you do plus plus a, in both of these situations, this plus plus is actually referring to increment by 1 unit, right? Now, what is the difference when a plus plus or plus plus a? Because if both of them are doing increment by 1, then let's say if the value of a was initially 10, then after doing a plus plus or plus plus a, after doing both of these situations, the final value of a will become 11, right? But there is a very fundamental difference. Postfix means, post means after, post means after. So if you write something like y is equals to a plus plus, what will happen? Y will get old value of a, y will get old value of a, and once we have assigned the value of a to y, after that we are going to increment the value of a. So step number 1, we first assign value of a to y, that is old value, and then in the next step increment a by 1, increment a by 1, right? So if at any point of time you see something like let a is equals to 10, let y is equals to a plus plus, and you do console.log, and you do console.log a comma y. So the output of this program is going to be 11 and 10. Why 11 and 10? Let's see. When you did y is equals to a plus plus, what is the step? The step is we first assign the value, the old value of a to y. What is the old value of a? 10. So we first assign the value 10 to y. So if we see in terms of memory, inside the memory you have two buckets. Inside the memory you have two buckets. One bucket is a, one bucket is y. What is the value of the bucket a? 10. What is the value of bucket y? What happens? You assign the old value of a to y. What is the old value of a? The old value of a is 10. So you assign the same value 10 inside y. So y gets a value 10. And after that, you increment a by 1. So now a becomes 10 plus 1, that is 11. So you see, finally in the y variable you have a value 10, and finally in the a variable you have a value 11, and hence it gives you 11 comma 10, right? So I can even show you very quickly. One second. Okay, so if let's say we do let a is equals to 10, let y is equals to a plus plus, and we do console.log a comma y. If you run this piece of code, you can see we are getting 11, 10. Why? Because a is directly assigning the value to y first and then incrementing. So it is incrementing after the assignment. The incrementing is done after the assignment. That's why we say it postfix. Postfix means increment after assignment. Increment after assignment. Okay. Now let's say what we do is, let's say we do one more thing. We do a plus plus again, and this time I'm not assigning the value of a to anything. I'm just writing a plus plus. I'm not assigning the value of a to anything. And then I do console.log a comma y. Now let's see what happens from the very start. So from the very start, let's see. So you first make a variable a with a value 10. So a is having a value 10. Then you make a variable y which is equals to a plus plus. A plus plus means we will first assign the value of a into y. What is the value of a? 10. So you will assign the same 10 in y, and then you increment a by 1 unit. So 10 plus 1 becomes 11. Then you do console.log a comma y. What is a? 11. What is y? 10. So you print 11 space 10. And then you do a plus plus again. But this time, we are not assigning. We are not assigning the value anywhere. We are just doing a plus plus. So a plus plus means if we were assigning it as a value to something else, then it will first assign itself and then increment. But we are not assigning anything. So all that matters is we just increment the value. So a plus plus will make 11 plus 1 as 12. This will become 12. And now if you print a comma y, you will get 12 space 10. Right? So let me execute it in front of you. So if you do a plus plus again and you do console.log a comma y, and if you run it, see, first you get 11 comma 10, then you get 12 comma 10. Can I say that? Right. So this is the essence. This is the essence of postfix operators. If you are assigning the value of postfix operator to something, then it will first assign the value, then increment itself. If you're not assigning, it is as simple as a basic increment statement. It's as simple as a basic increment statement. And if you are able to understand postfix operator, then prefix is just opposite of it. Right? So this is actually prefix unary addition. Right? Prefix unary addition. That is increment first and then assign. Increment first and then assign. For example, now if you have something like this, let a is equals to 10, let y is equals to plus plus a. So what happens here? You first create a bucket a, and here what will happen? Because it is a prefix operator, so what will happen? You will not assign for. This time you will increment first. So you will increment the value of a first and then assign it to y. So here the two steps are going to be, we first increment the value of a by 1. This is going to be the first step. And the second step will be assign value of a to y. Assign the value of a to y. So if I write the same piece of code here, and let's say we do let a is equals to 10, let y is equals to plus plus a, console.log a comma y. So what will happen is, let's say this is the memory and we have two buckets, right? This bucket is a, this is bucket is y. So let's see. The first line says create a value a and assign it a value 10. So we created a variable a and assign it a value 10. The next line says y is equals to plus plus a. What is plus plus a? We first increment, see, increment first then assign. We first increment the value of a by 1. So if you increment the value of a by 1 first, it will become 11 first. Now you have incremented the value. Now you are going to assign it back to y. So 11 when assigned to y will become 11. And if you now try to print, this will give you 11 space 11. And the same thing here. If you're not assigning the value somewhere and you just do plus plus a and then do console.log a comma y, then what will happen? After printing 11, 11, you see plus plus a. Now you're not assigning anywhere. So it is just like you are incrementing, and doesn't matter whether you are assigning or not. So you do plus plus a. So a increments by one more value. So it becomes 12. And now when you print, you get 12 space 11. So if I write the same piece of code in front of you, right, and just make it plus plus a, and here also let's make it plus plus a. And if I run it, see, first you are getting 11, 11, then you are getting 12, 11. So this is the difference between postfix and prefix unary operator. This is the difference between postfix and prefix unary operator. In postfix and prefix unary operator, the only difference is both of them is going to increment you by 1 unit. Both of them are going to increment the value by 1 unit. It's just that when you assign it, in postfix you first assign, then increment. In prefix, you first increment, then assign. That is the major difference. That is the major difference that exists here in this in this set of unary operators, right? Is this point making sense? Now the same thing will exist with minus minus also. If you have a minus minus or minus minus a minus minus means first assign the value of a to the given variable and then decrement. And minus I minus a means you first decrement, then assign. You first decrement, then assign, right? Okay. Now, apart from that, so these variables, this plus plus and minus minus, these are also called as unary increment and unary decrement operators, right? Increment means you increase the value, decrement means you decrease the value. Okay. Apart from that, there is one more unary operator, that is just a plus, right? Just a plus. This is called as unary plus. Unary plus. You just have a just a plus also, that is a unary plus, right? So what is the use case of this? Now it is a unary operator, that means only one operand will be required. So how you use a unary plus? You always use it something like this, plus x. You always use it like this. And what is the use case? It converts, or I would say it tries to convert the variable into a number if it is not already a number, right? If it is not already a number. For example, let's say if you try to do something like let x is equals to 22 and a string, and then you do something like plus x, and you do something like plus x, right? Now if you will check type of x, it will give you a number, right? It will give you a number. So type of is also an operator. Type of is also an operator. If you write type of before any variable, it will tell you what is the type, what is the data type of that corresponding variable. So let's use it. So now let's say if we do let x is equals to 22 and you do plus x and you do console.log type of x. If you run it, one second, sorry, my bad. Let's do let y is equals to this, and let's try to have the value of y. Value of y is a number, so we have to assign the value. That we have to take care about, that you always assign the value. You always assign the value somewhere. Let y is equals to plus x. So type of y is going to be a number. The type of x will remain a string. This is something that we have to make sure. So this plus x operator, it doesn't change the original operand, but instead returns a converted value. So see, x will still remain a string 22, but if you do let y is equals to plus x, what it will do, it will convert 22 to a number and then assign it back to y. If you check type of y, it will become number. If you check type of x, it will become string. This is the use case of unary plus operator. Now along with unary plus, you have a unary minus also. Unary minus also, that is something like this. So if you do y is equals to minus x, something like this, what unary minus does is it also converts the operand to a number, but always make the result negative. It will always make the result negative, right? For example, let's see. If you try to do something like minus x here, If you try to do something like minus x, and you also check the value of y, so I do console.log y, you can see y is minus 22. So it will convert y to a number. It will make the value of x a number and return it to y. X will remain as it is, but the number that it is going to return, it is going to be a negative number. That is something that we have to keep in our mind. So if you do something like let x is equals to 22, let y is equals to minus x, right? And if you do console.log x comma y, then you are going to get a string 22, but y will become minus 22 number. X will remain string, y will become a number. As simple as that. So it is going to convert it to a number. It is going to convert it to a number, just like unary plus, it will convert it to a number, but always negate it. Like it will always return a negative number out of it. That's the essence of unary minus, right? So you have a lot of other unary operators as well, right? So we know there is a logical not, right? Logical not, we already know that it is just going to give you a kind of like a not gate kind of a functionality, right? Similarly, type of is also a unary operator. Type of is also a unary operator, right? Because if you do type of a value x, so it always takes one operand. It will give you the type of the corresponding operand. So if let's say x is a number, it will return you something like a number in the string, right? So type of is also a unary operator. If let's say you have a value, let's say let y is equals to undefined, and if you try to do type of y, it will be undefined, right? It will return your string undefined, right? Also, one important thing, if this unary minus and unary plus is not able to convert the given operand into a valid number, it is going to return a invalid number. And what is an invalid number in JavaScript? It is NaN, right? So that's how things work with unary operators. It converts the operand to a number, but always make the result after negating it, right? This is one point that you need to keep in mind for unary minus, that if let's say your input is y is equals to, sorry, x is equals to minus 22 as a string, and you do y is equals to minus x, then it is going to first convert minus 22 as a string to a number which will be minus 22, and then negate it. So if you negate minus 22, it will become plus 22 and then assign. So whatever is, it's going to do the same thing as unary plus. It's just that you are going to first convert it to a number and then negate that number. So if the number is already negative, it makes it positive. If the number is positive, it will make it a negative number. So these were like basic unary operators. Apart from that, we left one more thing in loops. So we talked about two type of loops. We talked about while loops and we talked about do while loops. Sorry, we talked about while loops and we talked about for loops. There is one more type of loop which is like very simple to understand. It is called as do while loops. It is called as do while loops. What is do while loops? So if you remember while loops, you have a condition, right? You have some piece of code above, you have some piece of code below. You're going to execute this upper piece of code. And the moment you come at while loop, you will first check the condition. If the condition is true, then only you go inside the while loop. If the condition is false, you don't go inside the while loop. Can I say that? And once you go inside the while loop, you keep on repeating the process till the time condition is true. Now let me give you an example. First of all, let me give an example. If let's say if I say let y is equals to 10, while y is less than 5, then you have to do something, and you do console.log y, and here when you are doing something, let's do something like y plus plus, okay, something like this. Now let's see, the value of y is 10, okay, so you initialize a variable y with a value 10. Now you go to the while loop, you see, is the value 10 less than 5? Is 10 less than 5? What is the Boolean value for this expression? Is 10 less than 5? No. 10 is not less than 5, right? 10 is not less than 5. So this condition is already false. If this condition is false, do you think we will go inside the while loop? If this condition is false, do you think we will go inside the while loop? No. Because if the moment the condition is false, you don't go inside the while loop, you just come out of the while loop. If you're already inside the while loop, you just come out of it. But if it is the first time you're trying to go inside the while loop and the condition is false, you never even go inside the while loop. So this statement will never even occur. And this condition is false. So you directly go here and console.log y. Let me show you. So the output should be 10 as it is. The output should be 10 as it is. So if I do something like let y is equals to 10, while y is less than 5, y plus plus, and then we do console.log y. Okay. If you run this piece of code, you can see y still remains 10 because the loop never executed. If the loop never executed, you never incremented the value, right? You never incremented the value. Now there can be a situation that doesn't matter whether your condition is true or false. We want to execute the loop at least once. This was false. So the loop never even get executed even once, right? You never executed the loop for even one iteration, right? Because this condition was by default false only. This condition was false from the very starting. But let's say it doesn't matter for us in a situation that whether the condition is initially false or true. We want to execute the loop at least once. The block of the loop at least once we want to execute. Then we can use something like do while loops. What happens with do while loop is you can write something like this. Let's say let y is equals to 10. And then you write a keyword do. This do is a keyword. Okay. So you write do. You put a pair of curly braces. Right. And then here after a space, you put a space here. And then you say while and a condition. And you put a semicolon. Now what's going to happen here? What's going to happen here? Let's say I do y plus plus. And I do console.log y after it. Okay. And let's say the condition is y less than 5. So what will happen? If you have a do while loop, you initialize a variable y. You initialize a variable y equals to 10. Very good. Then what will happen? If you have a do while loop, it doesn't matter whether the condition is false from the very start or not. You will definitely go inside the body of do. You will go inside the block of do. So what is the block of do going to say? Y plus plus. So we increment the value of y from 10 to 11. So this block is done. And after executing the block, then you see the while loops condition. Is y less than 5? Is 10 less than 5? No. So it is false. So you break out of the while loop and then you try to do console.log. The value of y will be 11. Right? So the difference is in do while loop and while loop, the difference is it doesn't matter if the condition was false initially. It doesn't matter if the condition was false initially. Even if the condition was false initially, you will execute the loop at least once. Even if the condition is false from start only, it will still execute body / block of do once, right? So if I write the same piece of code in front of you, if I write the same piece of code with a do while loop, so we say do, then put a space, you say while plus plus, and just do while y less than 5. So the only structural change we have done is you put a do and then put the while loop below it. And now if you run it, you can see the value is 11 because you incremented anyhow by 1. Now the question that should come into your mind is, what if the condition was true? What if the condition was true? So let's say we say while y is less than 11, or let's say y is less than 12. Okay, cool. Now let's see what happens. You initialize a variable with y equals to 10, so you got a 10 here. Now you go inside do. Doesn't matter what the condition say. Doesn't matter whether the condition is false or not. You eventually go inside do. You do while plus plus. So y becomes 11. You check. Now you check. Is 11 less than 12? Yes, 11 is less than 12. So you again execute the do block. Now that condition was true. So you go back to the loop again. And then do y plus plus again. Now value of y is 11. Y plus plus will make it what? 12. and then you check the condition. Is 12 less than 12? No. Now you break out of the loop and you make console.log y will become 12, right? So if the condition is true, it is going to work like a normal while loop, that you first executed it, then check the condition. If the condition is true, you go back, execute it again, then check the condition. If the condition is true, go back and execute it again. If the condition is false, you come outside. But if let's say the condition is false from the very start, you will execute it, check the condition. Is the condition false? Yes. Then you go outside of it. So in do while loop, if the condition is false from the very start, you still execute the block of do at least once. This is the essence of do while loop. So if I write one more condition in front of you, let's say instead of 5, let's make it 15. Let's make it 15. If you run it, it is going to give you a value 15. Why? You have a value y as 10, right? The value of y is 10. You go to do and you do while plus y plus plus. So 10 plus 1 is 11. And then you check the condition. Is 11 less than 15? Yes, 11 is less than 15. So you go back to the do block and then again do y plus plus. So 11 plus 1 is 12. And then you check, is 12 less than 15? Yes, it is. So you go back again to the do block and do y plus plus. So this is 13. Is 13 less than 15? Yes, it is. So you go back to the do block again and do 13 plus plus, that is 14. Then you check, is 14 less than 15? Yes, it is. So you go back again and do plus plus. So 14 plus 1 is going to be 15. And now you check, is 15 less than 15? No. So you come out of the loop and you print y, and hence you get the answer as 15. So this is the essence of do while loop. Although everything that we are doing using do while loop, we will be still be like somehow by putting maybe some if check or doing something, some variations around normal while and for loop, we will be still be able to execute. But still it has been given to us as a functionality by most of the programming languages have a do while loop. So if required at some point of time, we can use it. Otherwise, you can just still execute it everything by putting some hacks here and there in your basic while loop, and things should be fine. So this is how like basic do while loop actually works. So there is one term called as entry control and exit control. Your normal while loop is entry control. Entry control means before you enter in the while loop, you check the condition. So on the entry, you have the control that whether you want to enter in the while loop or not. Whereas do while loop is exit control, that you always enter in the do while loop. When you are going to exit, that part is going to actually maintained by the condition. So do while loop is technically exit control. So let's talk about one more operator that exists, which is ternary operator. Now, what is ternary? Unary means 1, binary means 2, ternary means 3, right? So ternary operator is actually involved with 3 situations, or I would say 3 expressions are somehow involved with ternary operators. So ternary operator looks something like this: question mark colon. Together this becomes a ternary operator. Let me show you how. So how ternary operator works is, if let's say you say let y is equals to, first of all, in the ternary operator, you have to put a condition. You have to put a condition. After that condition, after a space, put a question mark. After it, write your first expression. Then after a colon, write your second expression, right? And bind the overall thing inside a parenthesis. So what is this condition? What is expression 1? What is expression 2? So what ternary operator says that if this condition is true, then you will evaluate expression 1, and whatever is the result of the evaluation of expression 1, you are going to return that result to y. If and only if the given condition is true. But if the given condition is false, you are not going to evaluate expression 1. Instead, you are going to evaluate expression 2. Whatever is the result of expression 2, you are going to assign it to y. Let me give you an example. With example, you will be able to understand more. So let's say we say let y is equals to, if 10 is greater than 5, then you put a question mark, and let's say we say return 10, otherwise return, let's say 7. Okay, and if you do console.log y, and let me expand it and run it, if you see the value is 10, the value that you have returned here is 10. So what's happening? Is 10 greater than 5? Is this condition true? Is this condition true? Yes. So here you have the first expression. You are always going to evaluate the first expression and then return it. So the first expression is just a number. You don't need to do any kind of evaluation. So you will just directly return a 10. If I make this condition false, or let me write it in the new line with a new variable, let's say x, and let's make this condition false. And if you run it, now you can see you are getting a value 7. The first variable y got a value 10 and the second variable is getting 7. Why? 10 greater than 5 is true, whereas 10 less than 5 is false. If the condition is false, you are going to evaluate the second expression. You are going to skip the first expression altogether and you are going to evaluate the second expression. Second expression is just a number, so you don't need to do any simplification or evaluation. You will just return the number. Whereas in the first statement, 10 greater than 5 is a condition, which is true. So you skip the second expression altogether and only just focus on the expression number 1. You evaluate the expression number 1, and it is already a number, so you don't need to do any simplification or evaluation, and you just return a 10. This is how things work. Let me give you one more example. Now let's say you just write a true here. So in the condition I just wrote a true, so you can say the condition is true, right? And if I say something like 2 plus 3 here, otherwise we say, let's say 2 minus 3, and we do console.log a. Okay, now if you run this code, you can see the output is 5. Why the output is 5? See, the condition here is true because you have already given a true, so you don't even need to evaluate the condition. Previously we were having 10 less than 5, so we first used to evaluate the condition. Here I am already getting a result in the condition that it is true. If it is true, then we will not consider expression 2. We will not consider it. We will only consider expression number 1. What is expression number 1? 2 plus 3. Now it is not, we need to simplify it, right? We need to evaluate this expression. So what is 2 plus 3? 5. You are going to return 5. So first you will evaluate, simplify it, and you return a 5. Let me give you one more example. Let's say if you have 3 less than 1, and then you do 2 minus 3, or maybe you do, and let's have a variable, let c is equals to 10, and let's say you do c plus plus, or let's say plus plus c, and you do console.log b. Okay, if you run it, the answer is 11. Why? Is 3 less than 1? Is 3 less than 1? What do you think? If I ask you to evaluate the condition, is 3 less than 1? What do you guys think should be the answer? It's a false, right? 3 is not less than 1. It's a false. If it is a false, then you are not going to evaluate expression 1. Expression 1 will be avoided, and you will only evaluate expression 2. Now, what expression 2 says? Plus plus c. So you need to first do the simplification and the evaluation, right? Now this is a prefix operator. So you first increment the value of c. What is the value of c? 10. You first increment it to make it 11 and then return the value of c. So b gets a value 11, and hence we are printing 11 here. Right. So I'll just cut paste this in the notes, and I hope this gives you a good sense of how exactly ternary operator works. Now, if you have the power of ternary operators, what is the difference between an if else and a ternary operator? Ternary operators are just a cleaner way to write conditional statements if you have one-liner expressions. For example, this same thing you could have done in if else by doing if condition. Then you do y is equals to expression 1, else y is equals to expression 2, something like this. So if these expressions, the after the condition becomes true, the logic that you want to execute is a one-liner logic, then it makes sense to use ternary operator for cleaner implementation. But if you have a complex set of logic and maybe you have more than two branches, like in if else you have yes or no, right? So it's a yes or a no, yes or a no. But if you have, let's say, multiple things, for example, if, else if, and then else, in that case, ternary operator might not be the best choice to go for, right? So if you have simple if else and the based on the condition you want to just execute single expressions, ternary operator makes sense because it makes the code look a bit more cleaner and understandable. So based on the conditionals, we know about if, we know about else, we know about else if, nested if else, all of these things we know. There is one more way in which you can do some kind of like conditional things, which is called as switch case. Switch case. So let me tell you first of all the exact syntax of switch case, that what exactly the syntax of switch case looks like. Okay. So switch case looks like this. You write switch. So this switch is a keyword. This switch is a keyword. Okay. So you write switch and then here inside it, you write either a value or some expression. Value means you don't need to simplify it further. Expression means it can be simplified, right? And then based on that, you put a set of curly braces, you put a set of curly braces, right? And then you say case value 1, right? Case value 2, case value 3, and at last you will write something like default. And this is not semicolon, these are colons. Right. And inside these cases, you write your logic, and after that you write a break. So break is also a keyword. Sorry. Break is a keyword. I'll talk about what is a break. I'll talk about what is a break. Right. And then here also you're going to have same thing. You will write your logic, and after the logic you write break. Same thing here. You write your logic, and after your logic you write break, and so on. So what is this switch case all about? Let's just try to understand. So whenever you write switch, and inside the switch you write a value or some expression. One second. You write a value or some expression, right? What happens is, whatever value or expression gets calculated, whatever value or expression gets calculated, we can use that value and check for the case So see, let's say inside switch. So let me give you an example. So let me write a code, and then based on that code, maybe we can try to figure out few things. So let's say if I write something like switch, let's say Sanket. Okay. So there is some value that I have written inside it. We'll put a pair of curly brace. Then we write case Sarthak. Okay. Or let's make it even more better. Let name is equals to Sanket. Okay. And if you write something like let switch name. Okay. So now this is an expression because it's a variable. You have to evaluate its value, right? So you can write case Sarthak, and you can say console.log name of the person is, or let's say we can say working at PhonePe. Okay. And then you have to put something called as a break. So break is also a keyword. I'll talk about what is a break. Then we say case Sanket. We put a colon. See, you are putting a colon and you say console.log working at Google. And then you put a break. Case JD. And you do console.log working at Microsoft. And you give a break. You give a break. At last, you say default. You say console.log don't know the company. Okay, let's see. Now, if you just run this piece of code, 1 second, there is a syntax error. Let's try to detect it. 1 second. Where do we have a syntax error? Let's see. Oh, sorry, my bad. This is a switch. The spelling of switch was wrong. The spelling of switch was wrong. Okay, now let's try to run it. And you can see the answer is working at Google. The answer is working at Google, right? So a lot of things are there to understand in this switch case. Let's try to understand all of these things one by one. Then only you will get a better context of what is exactly happening. So let me transfer this screenshot to my iPad and then let's see what is going to happen. So one second. Okay, cool. So let's see what the syntax is all about. Now you can say that here we have a variable with the name Sanket, right? We have a variable with name Sanket, right? Now what switch does is inside the switch, either you give a value or some expression. So technically there is a variable. You're going to evaluate. What is the value of this variable? Value of this variable is Sanket. So what will happen is, what switch case is going to do? It is going to check every case. It is going to check every case, right? In every case, you also put a value. So it will check, is the value inside the switch equal to Sarthak? No. Is the value inside the switch equals to Sanket? Yes. So whatever is the logic we have written, it will execute that logic, right? And then you have to write a break. What this break keyword is going to do? This break keyword is used at other places also. We are going to talk about that. But what we can say directly is, if we use break within a switch case, the moment we hit the break statement, we exit out of the switch, right? So the moment you hit the break statement, so see what happened? You checked whether the value of name is equals to Sanket. No. Whether the value of name was equals to Sanket. Yes. So here we have Sanket. Previously we were having Sarthak. And now the value was equal to Sanket. So you will execute your logic. So we are going to print working at Google. And then you hit the break. The moment you hit the break, this whole switch case is going to end and nothing more is going to get processed. This whole switch case is going to end and nothing more is going to happen. Okay. Now let's say the value instead of Sanket, the value was, let's say Sunny. Okay. The value was, let's say Sunny. Now the name is Sunny. You go to switch and put the name Sunny. Okay. You will check. Is the value of the name equal to Sarthak? No, it is Sunny. Is the value of the name equal to Sanket? No, it is Sunny. Is the value of the name equal to JD? No, it is Sunny. So you have checked all of your cases and none of the cases matched a value that you have put inside switch. If none of the cases match and you have given a default case, this default case means if nothing matches, you are going to print don't know the company, right? So even if I execute it in front of you, let's say you make it Sunny and run it. See, we are getting don't know the company, right? So it's kind of like else. But what if you don't put default? If you don't put default, nothing will be printed because default is not mandatory, right? Let me write default is not mandatory, right? If we don't have default and none of the case matches, we don't do anything. We don't do anything, right? If none of the case matches, we don't do anything. So see, so if I just go here and execute it, see, nothing is getting executed. Whereas if I just put a default and now run it, it is going to give me don't know the company. Let me change the variable to JD. If you change the variable to JD and now run it, you can see it gives you working at Microsoft. If I change the value to Sarthak, it is going to run working at PhonePe. Let's say if I make it Sanket and the characters are different. See, I am having a small s here, whereas in the case I have a capital S. In that case also, it is not going to match. It is going to give you don't know the company because it's not an exact match. It will try to make it an exact match. Now you might be thinking, what if I don't put a break? How about you don't put a break? If you don't put a break, what will happen is, let's make it Sanket first. And now if you run it, so see what is happening. You checked. Is the value of the name equal to Sarthak? No. Is the value of name equal to Sanket? Yes. So below whatever you have, so you print working at Google. After that, you don't get a break. So then you evaluate case JD and it doesn't matter, right? So case has already matched. The case has already matched with Sanket. So whatever is written below this case Sanket, everything will start getting executed. Everything will start getting executed and you will also print working at Microsoft. And then you hit a break. So when then you hit a break, so you stop there. What if you don't have a break here also? If you don't have a break here also, it will also go beyond it. It will also start executing it because technically if you don't have a break, all of this looks like something like this, right? Everything looks like is inside the case Sanket, right? So that's why it is always mandatory to put break. It's always mandatory to put break because you won't be having a logical separation. If you don't have a break, let me even write it. Let me even write it. If we don't put break, then whatever case we hit, below that, everything gets executed till we, one second, everything, one second. Everything will get executed till we find a break, right? So that is why there always should be a break statement in every case, because technically it doesn't matter if you have written cases and you don't have a break. It doesn't matter to have it all like that. Like if you want to like print working at Google, working at Microsoft, everything, so you just put it there. You just put this statement also here, right? And then just like simply execute it, both of them will execute. But if you have written this statement in a separate case, it doesn't makes us a lot of sense that you don't put a break here and everything below it just gets executed. So this is like a switch case. Now you might be thinking, what is the good use case of switch case? We already do have if else. Everything that you can do with switch case, you can do with if else also. As simple as that. But let's say if you want to have a situation, if you want to have a situation where this expression, whatever you have it as this expression, whatever is this expression, you just have a very simple expression to evaluate. And in every case, you just have few lines to do, or you're just assigning some variables. You have a very simple and very clean logic. Because if you see this syntax, then it is kind of like a very clean syntax, right? It looks very clean. If I just do a if else, like if name is equals to Sarthak, then do something else if name is equals to Sanket, then do something, and so on and so forth. It's not that beautiful when compared to a switch case, right? So everything that you are doing with a switch case, you can do with the if else. It's just a way of writing, and it's a cleaner way of writing, but you should only opt for it when you have small piece of logics. Otherwise, having a segregated if else makes more sense. So my point being that instead of strings, you can even have numbers here. It doesn't matter, right? You can even have some evaluatory expressions, right? If you can even have some evaluatory expression, for example, 5 less than 6. Now, if you have 5 less than 6, let's say condition, and you switch over a condition. Now, can I say, oh, sorry, my bad. You switch over a condition. Now, this condition can have only a true or a false. So it makes sense to just have a case of a true or a false. Can I say that? There is no point of having anything else because it will be either a case of true or a case of false. If you run it, see, we are getting working at PhonePe because 5 is less than 6. If you say 5 is greater than 6, now you are getting working at Google. So whatever expression there is, it will evaluate that expression, and then whatever is the value of expression, it will compare it with the case value that you have given. That is the simple use case of switch case. So this is the new question in front of you. Very simple question based on simple programming. You are given three numbers A, B, C, and these three numbers represent coefficient of a quadratic equation. I hope everyone knows about a quadratic equation, ax square plus bx plus c. And you have to find the roots of the quadratic equation or the solution of the quadratic equation, assuming that you will always get real roots. That means this condition b square is greater than 4ac is always true, right? So how do you solve a quadratic equation? If you have a quadratic equation like ax square plus bx plus c, then this quadratic equation gets two answers always. One answer is minus b plus square root of b square minus 4ac by 2a, and the other output is minus b minus b square minus 4ac by 2a. That's it. So in programming, we can do these operations very simply. We can have the addition operation, we can have multiplication, we can have division, subtraction, and the only thing is how you will get the square root. How can you get the square root? There is an inbuilt function math.sqrt. There is an inbuilt function math.sqrt. Whatever number you give to it, it will return the root of that number. So as simple as that. Something like this we can do, right? And this question will get solved. So let's try to code this question. Let's try to code this question. Quadratic.js. So let's write a function solve, and this function is, let's say, going to take three arguments a, b, c, right? A is going to represent, this is going to represent ax square plus bx plus c. What will be the roots? So first of all, let's calculate the value of, let square root value is equals to math.sqrt of b square. B square is b into b minus 4 into a into c. Let's calculate the square root value. So one root, root 1 is going to be minus b plus square root value by 2 into a, and root 2 is going to be minus b minus square root value by 2a, and then you can do console.log root 1 comma root 2, right? So if I call solve for, let's say 2 comma 5 comma 3, something like this, and if you run it, so you're getting minus 1 comma minus 1.5. The other one is minus 1.5. So one root is minus 1, the other root is minus 1.5, and that's it. So in this simple way, using a simple inbuilt function, you can calculate the square root and just calculate the value of the roots of the quadratic equation, as simple as that. So sometimes you might see these two strings getting compared, right? Strings like these getting compared, right? So if I also execute it in front of you, so we say comp.js, and if I do console.log abc equals to abc, and if I run it, you see you're getting a true. You're getting a true. Even if you have, let's say, two variables, x is equals to abc and let y is equals to abc, and we do console.log x double equals to y, and you run it, you will get true always. Okay. Now, whenever you write a string like this, whenever you write a text or a string like this with double quotes, this is called as a string literal. Like it's just an individual string. It's just an individual string. There is one more way to prepare a string. There is one more way to prepare a string, something like this. Let's say z is equals to new string, right? And then also you can do abc. If you do console.log z, if you do console.log z and run this piece of code, you will get a string like this. And you can see it's quite different from your normal string, right? It's quite different from your normal string. Or if you don't use a new, and just to do a string, then you will get something like abc, right? So let's use both of them. Let a is equals to new string abc, and let's try to understand the differences. Let's say is a double equals to z, then we will try to check whether a is double equals to x, then we'll try to check whether z is double equals to x. Okay, let's see. If you run it, what are you getting? Is a double equals to z? Are these two same? True. Is a double equals to x? So this new string abc, is this equal to x? Yes, it says true. Is z double equals to x? This type of a string equals to x? Yes. And if you do something like this, abc double is equals to new string abc, and now if you run it, you still get a true. So technically, always whenever you create any type of a string, right? And let me also run this in browser. So let me also run this in Mozilla. Let me open it. Let's run it. Every time we are getting true. So in whatever way you are getting, you are making a string. So these are different ways of creating a string. Right? If I go with actual definition, you will get confused currently, right? So actually when you do a new string, it is actually creating an string object. It is different than your normal string literal. This is string literal. So whenever you just have a double quoted string, it's just a simple string literal. Whereas if you have new string like this, or if you have a string like this, it's like a string object, right? Now, if you use a double equal to operator, it's going to be same, right? Every time, if you compare any one of these, it's going to give you true. What about triple equal to? If I put a triple equal to here and run it, now you can see the outputs are a bit different. If I run it and let's comment out the double equal to, and now if you see, now if you do a double equals to z, that means you compare this string object with this string object, you get a false. When you do a double equals to x, a triple equals to x, that is you compare this string literal with this string object, you again get a false. If you do z double equals to x, this z double equals to x, then you get a true. And then when you do ABC double equals to a new string, then you again get a false, right? So what is actually going on? Sometimes we are getting a true, sometimes we are getting a false. The logic is hidden behind this equality operator. How this equality operator is going to perform things, that's how we will be able to understand the things. So the best way to understand this is going to be opening the official documentation, and then I will show you. So if you open the official documentation of double equal to operator, right? If you open the official documentation of double equal to, that is the abstract equality. Yes. First of all, let's check for triple equals to. Okay. Equality. Okay. So strict equality. So let's read about triple equal to operator. If you read about triple equal to operator, first of all, you have to check whether the type of both of the things are same or not. If the types are same, if the types are different, you directly return a false. Now let's see. You compare A with Z. You compare A with Z. A is this, Z is this. How about we check the type of both? So let's check the type of A. Console.log type of A. And let's do console.log type of Z. And let's do console.log type of X. Okay. If you run it, type of A is object. Type of Z and X are strings. So if you do A triple equals to Z, can I say the type of A and Z are both different? Can I say that? And if the types are different, you directly get a false. If the types are different, you directly get a false. So this string object it's a string object. That's why you are getting an object here. Whereas this is also a string literal, or you can just say a normal string. And this is also a normal string. This is also a normal string. So now if you do A triple equal to Z, both of them are having different types. So you get a false. If you do A triple equal to X, now also you get a false. Now also you get a false. Now you might be thinking, okay, if this is A and this is A and this is X, both of them are having different types. So you get a false. See, A is object, X is string, you get a false. But when you do Z triple equal to X, that is this string and this X, both of them are strings and exact values are also string ABC. So both of them are equal to each other. So you get a true. And here again, it's a string and this is an object. So you again get a false. So in triple equal to, if the types are different, it immediately returns a false. That's why you're getting falses here. But in double equal to, if the types are different, it tries to convert the types. So these objects, it tries to like separately convert them. And due to this conversion, you are able to get both of them as the same type, and hence you get a true. So this is something that you have to always keep in mind, that when comparing different type of values, you should always keep an eye on how equality operator is working, what type of conversion it is trying to do, and then only come to a conclusion. Now we have a new pattern in front of us, and we'll try to solve one more pattern problem, and it's going to be a very simple pattern. So the pattern says that if you have a value of n is equals to 4, something like this we have to print. Okay. Now we have already done a pattern where we were doing with something with stars, if you remember. Something with stars we already did, right? So that pattern was easy. And why I'm comparing it with that pattern, because in those pattern also we were having some spaces followed by some stars. So I guess the logic of spaces is going to remain same. We already know how to append spaces. All we have to figure out is what about these values, what you can do with these values. Okay. So in order to understand this pattern, I'm going to break this pattern into two parts. Let's first of all only try to solve this much pattern. Let's forget about this. See, first of all, let's try to get this pattern. So let me copy this. So for the time being, let's only try to solve this much part. Let's try to print this much part. It's always good in your pattern based problems. It is always good that you segregate out your problem into smaller problems and then try to solve it. Okay, let's see. This is row number 1, this is row number 2, this is row number 3, and this is row number 4. Okay. If you see any row, if you see row number 1, so you start from 1 and end at 1. If you see row number 2, you start from 1 and you end at 2. If you see row number 3, you start at 1 and you end at 3. If you see row number 4, you start at 1 and end at 4. Can I say that? Can I say that? So for every row, we have to print some numbers. For every row, we have a task. For every row, we have a task to print some spaces followed by numbers. Okay, cool. So can I say, if I will write a for loop for let row equals to 1, how many rows we want to print? If the value of n is 4, we want to print 4 rows. So can I say we start with row number 1? We say row is less than or equal to n, row plus plus, right? Now, whatever we will write this inside this for loop, it will be repeated for every row, right? Okay. Now in every row we need spaces. In every row we need spaces. Now you see, in the first row you have 3 spaces. That is technically n minus row number. See, 4 minus 1 is 3. In the second you have 4 minus 2 as 2. In the third you have 4 minus 3 as 1. And the last you have 4 minus 4 as 0. So if you see that for any current row, and this kind of pattern we have already done. So any current row, the spaces are equals to n minus the current row. These many spaces we need to print. So we will say let str is equals to an empty string. Let spaces is equals to n minus row. And we say for let I equals to 1, I less than equal to spaces I plus plus, and we say str plus equals to a space. Okay, we will keep on appending a space. This much part I believe is going to be clear to everyone, because this much part we have already done, right? This much part we have already done in star pattern. So this much part should be definitely doable. Okay, cool. Now what about these things? What about these things? Now let's try to think about, let's say this row number 3. We got our spaces. What about these? Can I say in any row we print 1, 2, 3, so on and so forth up till that row number? Can I say that? We print 1, then we print 2, then we print 3 up till that row number. This we have to print, right? This we have to print. Okay. So how about we prepare a counter variable that starts with 1. See, every row always starts with 1 only, right? Every row always starts with 1. So how about in every row we keep a counter variable that starts with 1. Okay, that starts with 1. Then what you can do is you can write a loop. In every iteration, append this counter variable in your string. Append this counter variable in your string and increment the counter. And how many times you have to do it? Let's say if you are in row number 3, you need to print it or concatenate it 3 times. If you have row number 2, you have to concatenate it 2 times. So can I say, we will say for let j equals to 1, j less than equal to the current row number, j plus plus, and we say str plus is equals to counter. So str is already a string, If you try to add a number to a string, it will concatenate that number to a string. And then you do counter plus plus, and you do counter plus plus. So let's see what will happen. Let's see what will happen. So here, let's say I'm already having one space. Okay. Let's say I'm already having one space character. You have a variable counter is equals to 1. You start from this. J is equals to 1. And let's say row number is 3. Okay. Is 1 less than or equal to 3? Yes, it is. You concatenate counter. So if you concatenate counter, what is counter? Counter is 1. So you added 1 here. And then you do counter plus plus. So counter became 2. And then you go back to the loop. And then you go back to the loop. And increment j. J becomes 2. Now you again check. Is 2 less than or equal to 3? Yes, it is. So you append counter. What is counter? Counter is 2. So you append a 2 here. And then you do counter plus plus, that is 3. And then you move back to the loop and do j plus plus. J becomes 3. You check. Is 3 less than or equal to 3? Yes, it is. So you append 3 here and you do counter plus plus. So counter becomes 4. Counter becomes 4 and j increments to 4. Now, is 4 less than or equal to 3? No. So that's it. We are done for the third row. And this is how we can build this particular row. If we can build this particular row, every row will be buildable. Can I say that? So if I write this much logic, let's see. Let's say if I write a function pattern that takes a value n, we try to do something for each row. Okay, for each row, let's sort the spaces first. So we'll say let str is equals to an empty string. Let spaces is equals to n minus row. Then we do for let I is equals to 1, I less than equal to spaces, I plus equals to 1, or we can just do I plus plus. Okay. And we say str plus equals to a space. That's it. This much part should be already doable. Now what we can do, we can have a counter variable that starts with 1. And how many times we need to iterate? We'll say for let j equals to 1, j less than equals to the given row, j plus plus. We say str first, like currently after this for loop ends, you will be only having spaces. After space, first you need to attach a 1. So you will first attach the counter. So you will first attach the counter and then you increment the counter to 2. This is going to be crucial. At last, when you have prepared the string for the row, just print the string. Just print the string. If you call for pattern of 5, if you run it, can I say this much part we have got? Can I say this much part we have got? Right. And this whole loop you can write with do while, or you can use it with a while loop, anything you can write, right? But is this point making sense? I hope this point is making sense, that how you are actually doing it. And let's even try to do a bit of dry run. Let's try to do a bit of dry run. Okay. So okay, so you are in this function. So you have a row variable. Row starts with 1. So you are in row number 1. You check, is 1 less than or equal to n? Here you can see. So let's resume our debugging. And what we can say is the row variable has been initialized with the value 1. You can see here row is 1. So now you're going to compare. Is 1 less than or equal to n? Is 1 less than or equal to n? Yes, it is. So you prepare a variable str, right? And now just a minute. So what we are going to say is the value of row variable is 1. The value of row variable is 1. 1 is less than or equal to n. So you go inside and create a variable str. See, so you're going to create a variable str as an empty string. In the first row, how many spaces do you need? N minus row. What is the value of n? If you see, the value n that you have passed. Let's see. N is 5. The value n that you have passed is 5. So 5 minus 1 is 4. So you need 4 spaces, right? Okay. So you need 4 spaces. You go ahead and let's see this. Let's see this string. You will append your first space. See, we appended our first space. Then we will append our second space. Then we will append our third space. We append our fourth space. And that's it. We have appended 4 spaces in str. Right? Now the new logic will come. You prepare a counter variable with 1. See, counter variable is having a value 1. You start with j equals to 1. Is j less than or equal to row? Is 1 less than or equal to 1? Yes, it is. So you append the counter. What is counter? Counter is 1. Let's see what gets appended in str. So see, you appended 1 inside str. And then you increment the counter. So now see, counter became 2. Now you check. What is the value of j? J is equals to 1. Is 1 less than or equal to row? What is row? Row is also 1. So is 1 less than or 2 less than or equal to 1? No. So see, we are going to come outside of it and we are going to print str. So see, we printed this. We printed this. And then we are going to move ahead. We will build the next row. In next row, we need 3 spaces. So I'll just quickly build the spaces. And you can see there are 3 spaces. This time, counter will be appending 1 and 2 both. Let's see. Counter is equals to 1. Counter is set to 1. J starts with 1. Is 1 less than or equal to 2? Yes, it is. So you append a 1. See, inside str, you append a 1. Then counter plus plus. Counter became 2. What is the value of j? J increments. J is 2. Is 2 less than or equal to the row? Row number is also 2. So is 2 less than or equal to 2? Yes, it is. You do str plus equals to counter. So you are going to append 2 here. See, 1 and 2 both got appended. And then you do counter plus plus. Counter became 3. J became 3. See, and now is 3 less than or equal to 2? No. So you exit out of it and print it again, right? So we are going to print it again. So if you carefully see, when this for loop ends, what is the value of counter? After the end of the for loop, the value of the counter is row plus 1. See, current row number is what? Current row number is 2. What is the value of the counter? 3, right? So you print 1, 2. Let's see one more row. So let's go for the third row. In the third row, we will need only 2 spaces. So this loop will go for 2 iterations. And that's it. See, we have 2 spaces. Now counter will be appending 3 numbers. Let's see. Counter is 1. So you started with 1. Before the for loop, you see the counter variable is 1. The counter variable is 1. You append 1 in the str, you increment counter. Then you append 2 in the str, you increment counter. Then you append 3 in the str and you increment the counter. Now you come back outside of the loop and you can see row number was 3. What is the value of the counter? The value of the counter is 4. And now you print it 1, 2, 3 and so on. This is how things are going to work for this pattern, right? So if we have divided our pattern into 2 separate components, then the first component we have already solved for each row. Can we say that? Now, one thing that we observed was when this loop ends, the value of the counter variable is row number plus 1. Can I say that? If the row number is 3, after the end of this for loop, the counter will be 4. If the row number is 4, after the end of this for loop, the counter is 5. Can I say that? And if somehow, see, using this first for loop, we appended spaces. Using the second for loop, we appended increasing order of the numbers. What is the third component? This is the third or if we say remaining component is this, where you have decreasing order of numbers. And these decreasing order of numbers, if you every time see, these starts from what? These starts from what? Let's see. So if this is row number 1, 2, 3, 4. If this is row number 2, it starts with 2 minus 1 and goes till 1. If row number is 3, this component starts with 3 minus 1 and goes till 1. If row number is 4, this component starts with 4 minus 1 and goes till 1. Can I say that? So in this part, thing starts with row minus 1 and goes up till 1. Can I say that? Right. So what you can do is maybe we can reuse this counter variable. There are two ways. Either you can reuse this counter variable. How? Either you can set it to counter is equals to row minus 1. Either you can reuse it, or maybe we can like even avoid this observation, the one observation that I keep, like using that observation you can reuse that value, or let's make another counter. It doesn't even matter, although let's make counter 2 that starts with row minus 1, and this time write a decreasing for loop. We write for let k equals to counter 2, k greater than or equal to 1, k minus minus, something like this we can write, right? Because if you technically see how many numbers we have to print here, we can also do one thing, right? If you carefully see, in every row, in the second part, if the row number is 3, we have to print 2 numbers. If the row number is 4, we have to print 3 numbers. If the row number is 2, we have to print 1 number. So if you are at any particular row, how many numbers to print? How many numbers to print? Can I say row minus 1 numbers to print? So what I can say is, I can have an increasing loop also. K less than equal to row minus 1, k plus plus, and then every time we can do str plus is equals to counter 2, str plus is equals to counter 2, and counter minus minus, and counter minus minus. That's it. So see, initially the counter will be what? Let's say the row number is 3. So counter will be what? 2. Can I say that? Counter is 3 minus 1, 2. So counter starts with 2. K starts with 1. Is 1 less than or equal to 2? Yes, it is. So you append a counter. So you append counter here as 1, 2, 3, 2. And you do counter minus minus. So counter became 1. You go back to the loop, you increment the value of k. K became 1. Sorry, k became 2. Is 2 less than or equal to 2? Yes, it is. So you again added the counter. What is counter? 1. So you appended 1 and do counter minus minus. Now counter became 0. Then you go back to the loop, increment the value of k to 3. Now, is 3 less than or equal to 2? No. And this for loop ends. And after this, you can print str because now you have prepared str. As simple as that. So we're just breaking the components, right? So what you can do, let's avoid the counter variable. You can reuse the counter variable also. Or maybe you can make another counter variable, counter 2, that starts with row minus 1. We can have a for loop. Let's close all of this. For loop k is equals to 1. How many numbers do we need to print? Row minus 1 numbers we need to print. So k plus plus. And we do str plus is equals to counter 2. Counter 2 minus minus. And now we can do console.log str. That's it. Same thing. We just added one more loop to add the remaining part of the row. If now you run it, you get the pattern. As simple as that. So things are going to be simple if you just divide your pattern into components. You can divide it in multiple ways. Whatever way suits you, you can use that. And based on that, try to segregate logic. Try to form smaller pattern and slowly and steadily progress to bigger patterns. That is going to be the key to conquer pattern-based questions.